Hi, I'm Caroline.
And I'm Leah. Welcome back to
Happiness and Champagne. Last night, Leah and I decided to go out and scout for the show. We wanted to promote ourselves and also maybe find Leah love or other people love. And it's sort of funny because we went into this bar and we ended up sort of trapped in this certain area, and we ended up next to two guys that were obviously on a business meeting, and then one guy who was there by himself, older, and he seemed a bit stuffy. And so we were thinking, oh, it's too bad.
So I was reading the financials in the Washington Post.
Yes, he
and
was.
I was kind of leaning over, looking at the highlights of the newspaper. And he sensed that and kind of, gave me that weird look.
He did. And then he started saying, oh, that looks good on his food. We were all looking at his food because we were hungry. So we got a drink and ordered some food. And we started talking to him more. And he was in town for a big meeting that he had in the morning. And he's traveled the world. And so he started talking to us. But we could tell that he was only there for like dinner and a couple glasses of wine. And I was sort of hoping that was it because we needed to open up the spot in case we found someone else.
He was kind of a block, I won't say.
Yeah. He was kind of a block, but he ended up being really interesting. We found out a lot about his life, and he ended up.
But definitely not who we're looking for to bring on the podcast.
No.
So we kind of wasted
Well, he was
some
married.
time.
He was married.
Definitely not the type we want to bring on the podcast. That's not what we're looking for.
Not for the people who want to, our Lonely Hearts Club. We need to find the right person, but down
the Lonely Hearts
Club.
Club.
And down a few seats from him was this guy who was obviously having a very good time. And you said, what about him? And I said something like, no, he looks like an idiot. Well, he ended up being really nice.
He did.
Yeah. And
I just thought it was hysterical that he totally lied about his age.
He did.
Like 20 years.
He did. And I knew he was
like,
lying.
Who do you think you are?
You're like, oh, he's a little too young. And I'm like, yeah, he's too young for our podcast. But I was thinking to myself, but he looks, no way. He's not in his 40s. That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
No way. And it turns out that he was in his 60s. So he really lied.
Well, what I found was funny is I thought, okay, well, he's way too young, but I have a friend,
That's
so
true.
here I am matchmaking, thinking, okay, let's matchmake. So I mentioned to him about my friend, and I was showing him pictures of her, and he says, well, what about you? And I said, I'm too old for you.
I know. And that's so funny because he was your exact age, I think. He was 61 when I looked him up.
There we go.
Yep, I looked him up.
She has missed her calling in life.
Yes, I looked him up, but it turns out he was a lawyer, and I said, what type of lawyer? And he would not tell me.
He was a friendly lawyer.
No, a good lawyer. I'm a very good lawyer. Well, what does that mean?
It means you're either full of caca or I don't know of a good lawyer.
No, yeah. So he was a very good lawyer, but he was going to have to Uber back to his office to send out an email on the secure server for something he had to get done. And I said, you can do that while you're trashed? Because he was trashed.
Oh, he drank that bottle of
Yeah.
wine.
Oh, yeah. He was trashed. And
actually, both of those guys drank a bottle of wine.
I know. And the older guy didn't go over so well. So the younger guy, well, not much younger, was not having it. And he said that, no, I can do this like in my sleep. And that's when I was like, well, what type of lawyer? And then he kept getting calls and he was speaking different languages. It was interesting. I think he knew like 4 languages. But he was definitely from Jersey.
Jersey and New York, however, you don't leave legal documents sitting on a bar around us.
No, because once I saw the document, I could tell that it was an ALTA from a closing statement. So I said, oh, you're a settlement attorney. And
how do you know that?
How do you know that? And I said, because there's your ALTA. And he's like, oh, how do you know? I go, because I sell real estate and I know what an ALTA looks like. And he's like, oh, well, yes, I am. And he told me he owned the business. And I wasn't sure between him lying about his age, his dyed hair.
But the key factor was he put down a black Amex card.
He did.
So.
But his dyed hair and So I was like, I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. But I did look him up and he was telling the truth, other than his age.
So further, as you were talking with the other gentleman, I'm asking questions, right? Very inquisitive. So I said, how long have you been in Virginia? Long enough. I hate Virginia. And I said, oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. And then I said, well, what do you do for fun? And he was telling me that he wrestles. And
He was very built.
right.
Yes.
But at his age. Anyway, so I said, well, that's interesting. And he was talking about going to Vegas. Like, are you competing in Vegas? Like, I was lost. I didn't understand what he was trying to say. And then it went to, we were talking about horses. And he's like, let's buy a racehorse together. And we're going to name her Leah. And I'm like, what? Let's buy a racehorse. I said, well, actually, my friend raises racehorses and races at Colonial Downs.
Yes.
Colonial Beach or something. And I don't know. He was all over the place.
He was all over the place, and he wanted to meet us. He said, I need to go back to Annandale to my office, and then I'll meet you at the other bar. And we're like, what time is it? He could barely walk by then. I'm like, oh, no, I don't think we're going to want to have him on the podcast. But we did exchange numbers in case we ever bring him on. We'll let you know if it's him.
Yes.
Yeah. But he was lonely. I don't think he's ever been married.
Never married. He said he was engaged twice. But I couldn't put my finger on.
I actually, my spidey senses was he probably parties too hard.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's
He did.
what
He
I
definitely.
thought.
As a matter of fact, at one point he was willing to buy $450 shots for us.
I know.
Each.
Louis the 13th.
Yeah, each. And I said, I'm not doing that.
I will.
I know you wanted to. I'm like, I'm not doing that because he was just too trash to give him a bill like that. I don't know. It's not.
That's a shocker the next morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, because we're nice.
Too nice. No, I wasn't willing to do that. And plus, I didn't even want the shot. But the other guy who was so conservative and so like finance and really interesting, very worldly, when he got buzzed, he got really inappropriate with Leah.
Yeah, he did.
He did. And well, before he stumbled away, he mentioned how in his younger years, if it would work, remember he said it doesn't work so well anymore, but if it worked, he'd really like to take you to bed. He said it worse than that, but yeah.
20 years ago, this is what he said.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep it G-rated, but
Yeah.
he said, can I say something totally inappropriate?
Okay.
Sure. I'm in the auto body business, so I've gotten inappropriate stuff before. And he goes, 20 years ago, I wasn't such a great, loyal husband. And when I was on business trips, I would have asked you to sleep with me. He didn't say it like that. And I'm like, oh, great. Like,
He was vulgar.
do I take that as a
Yeah.
compliment?
So
or
the
what
guy
have
who was
you?
so nice was vulgar in the end. And then he left without saying goodbye. He just sort of stumbled away. And I thought, wonder if he's actually going to make it to the hotel. But he was probably staying right there. I have no idea.
Well, the hotel was right at the
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah.
Who knows? But what I did find interesting was he started to become very inquisitive about our podcast
He did.
and asked if we needed
Funding.
funding, but then was giving us. He started becoming very engaged and started using examples of podcasts that he was familiar with and started giving us some ideas. And, the conversation, I felt that part of it flowed well.
Oh, well, that was in the beginning. Yeah. He was very inquisitive.
He was 2 drinks in or 2
Yeah,
glasses
yeah.
of wine in. Yeah.
In the end, I had to help him with his bill. And he's the accountant. He's a finance guy. I'm like, here, let me help you.
He did say that. And then he also gave you a compliment that I have the best wingman.
Yeah, because I think I was correcting you a couple times and having fun with it. Shocker. And making jokes. And so we had fun. So basically, that's one thing I want to share with the ladies out there that are lonely. You should go put yourself out there. Of course, it's fun. I don't know if I would do it by myself. Of course, I wouldn't do it. I'm married, but I don't know. Do you ever go out by yourself?
When I was traveling
Yes.
by myself, it took me a little while to get used to going up to a restaurant, and I wouldn't sit at a table because my tip was so minimal. So I didn't want to take someone's table knowing, that they
Yes.
live off of their tips. So I would sit at the bar and, either engage on my phone or sometimes I would do some work. But I'll never forget one night I was in Jersey, as a matter of fact, and I went into a really nice steakhouse and I went up to the bar and I wasn't drinking. Wasn't interested. And then my steak got served to me and I'm thinking, oh, nice glass of red wine would be so good. The bartender came up to me and said, the two gentlemen down at the end of the bar would like to buy you a glass of wine. I'm like, okay, fine.
That's perfect.
So I'm like, give me a good glass of wine to go with the steak. So I ended up becoming a little bit more comfortable and more social. And you do find when you're traveling on your own that there's so many other people that are doing the same thing. They're in the same boat.
So a lot of people are coming up and talking to you.
Not necessarily.
No, I think I heard quite a few stories. You had
yeah.
some creepy stories from then too. Remember the one guy followed you?
Oh, in my hotel room.
Yeah.
Should I share that?
Yeah.
So I was supposed to travel to Delaware. And Delaware, you've got a military base and a casino and a racetrack. So the area is not that great. It's kind of sketchy. So I decided to stay in Rehoboth Beach. Nicer, family-oriented type stuff. So I go out and I have a bite to eat and I'm coming back through the hotel lobby and there's this younger guy talking to the manager there. And I'm rounding the corner going to the elevator and he says, excuse me, but do you have some Neosporin and a Band-Aid? And I'm like, no, why? Now that I think about it, he wanted me to say, yes, come up to my hotel room. Mm-hmm. But let me lead on to what else happened. So I said, no, sorry, I don't. So I went on to the elevator and the elevator was getting ready to close and he popped in. And I was staying at the hotel where they write your room number on the outside of the card. So I had the card flipped around to where he could read it, not realizing this. And I said, what floor? And he said, the same floor that you're on. And I said, how do you know that? And he goes, because I can see your room number. So I thought, well, that was weird. My red flag went up. I should have exited the elevator. But as the doors closed, he walked right up to me and got into my personal space. And he goes, I noticed you're not married. You don't have a ring on. You're really pretty. And I'm like, no, first of all, step back. And then the doors opened up and we got off the elevator and he made a comment to me about walking down the hall. So I thought it'd be smart. I thought this would be a total turnoff. And I turned around and I said, I'm old enough to be your grandmother. And I went off to my room. So later on, 10 minutes later, I'm on the phone with a girlfriend of mine and he's knocking at my door. And I didn't answer the door, but my girlfriend made me promise that I would change rooms. So I called down to the manager and the manager said, yes, there's some very odd behavior. I'm coming up. I'm going to change you to a different room. So the guy comes up, the manager of the hotel, and walks into my hotel room and closes the door. And I'm thinking, okay, they're in cahoots. Like, what the heck is going on here? And he said, I put you in another room for 18, which has your name on it, but I'm actually putting you in 512 or whatever. He goes, so if nobody can trace you. If this were my sister, this is how I would protect her.
Oh, that was really nice of him.
So, something was going on, and I had no idea. So he said, okay, get on the elevator, go up to the room. I'll bring your luggage up. I said, I'm not getting on the elevator. So I took the steps up to my room, and then he brought my luggage up. So I asked if this guy was going to be there the next night, because if he was, I wasn't staying there. And he said, there's a problem. I said, well, what's the problem? He said, he was down at the bar. He used a credit card. Credit card doesn't belong to him. We don't know who he is. We don't know where he's staying. We don't know anything about him. So I said, I'm out of here. So the next night I did book a hotel in Delaware with that same hotel chain. And when I got there, they knew who I was and wanted to make sure I was taken care of. So fast forward 6 months later, I ended up going back to Rehoboth Beach. I ended up staying back at that same hotel. I was sitting at the bar and I was telling the bartender my story. And he looked at me and goes, "Wait a minute, that was you?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "My wife was the bartender that night. I am so thankful that you're okay, that you didn't get hurt." So there was something sketchy with this guy. And then he said, "I want you to stay here until my wife comes in. She's on her way up here." So she sat down and we talked about it. And she put her hand on me and said, "I'm so glad you're okay."
He really wanted to get into your room for Neosporin.
There, oh,
No, I mean, to take advantage of you. Definitely.
right.
That's scary.
It was because I really had to be careful. My thing is I trust people.
Yeah, I know.
So that was one story. And then another story, I was in Richmond and I was just driving around. I was in a roundabout and I went past this park and I thought, oh, the park looks really cute. I'm going to sit down on the bench and just do some work and go through my emails. So I'm sitting there going through my emails and all of a sudden I hear this man. He's like, "Hi, how are you? I thought you were really beautiful. I saw you on the roundabout, so I followed you here." And I'm thinking, what is with me and this type of...
It's just creepy
It's
people.
men, and
Yeah.
that's why that book, the Gift of Fear. I wished I had read that book earlier because there were a lot of other red flags with other instances. Those are just two of.
And so we have to be careful out there as women, as we've talked about before. But definitely listen to your spidey senses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
It saved me a time or two.
yeah. Wow. So anyhow, let's see everyone next week and follow us on.
On all the social platforms. Also, we are on email at
happinessandchampagne@gmail.com.
and we also have a phone number. So feel free to call and leave a message. The phone number that we now have is 703-574-0083. And we look forward to the next episode.
And money can't buy you happiness.
But champagne can. Cheers.